Down the outside of the golf cart, that's Mackenzie. 2 wheels out on the grass. What an overtake. If he can make this stick, he might go right around and lead this little bunch.
Okay, so before we start, this is race 2, but this is my special engineer, Ollie, and his dad come down to watch the race weekends. Ollie's one of my former students. Come down to check out the racing. There's the old engineer, not old, regular engineer. So I'm just going to fast forward because our race got delayed by about 20 minutes because the crazy XL class, they had to recover a car and fix up a heap of the track. They were kind of crazy all weekend. Anyway, here we are about to start. Next to me is my rival from last round, that the guy I was trying to beat most of the time. He's about to come very close to getting a penalty, but he manages to pull up with millimeters to spare, so he didn't get the penalty. I got the jump on him. Even though I got the jump on him, he is excellent at starting, so he was definitely ahead of me. I could have fought him, but I just didn't really want to waste time and have a gap build to the people in front, so I let him go. I've really got to work on when I'm letting people go, because all weekend whenever I did it, I just lifted too much and ended up getting quite a big gap that I had to try and close up. So run wide, cold tyres. I also have to work on my tyre warming on warm-up laps. Still not getting them up to temperature, so although after the first lap they're pretty warm, definitely overshooting corners. Anyway, the main idea now was I was just thinking I need to make sure I catch back up to the white car and try and pass him as quick as possible. I knew I had the pace on him, so it was just a matter of getting up to him and figuring out where I was going to pass. Passing on this track, I hadn't really done much of it last weekend. Well, not last weekend, last round. I was just mainly concentrating on getting a feel for the car and not crashing. So in my rearview mirrors, I could see Ed behind me. Ed's got good pace. He's probably my main rival for this year. He's the other rookie. We got very similar times. I think our best times for the weekend were separated by a couple of hundredths of a second. So we're very close together in race pace, and I could see him behind me, so I didn't really want to defend and make the gap bigger to the guy in front. So if he got a run on me, I was quite happy to let him go while we had a gap to the people in front, just to make sure that it didn't get bigger. So I'm trying to just get a good exit here. This is one of the main corners I was working on for the weekend, just trying to carry as much speed as I could through there so that I could be going down this huge straight with as much speed as possible. I knew he wasn't going to get me there, and this actually took me a bit by surprise, so I thought I was safe, but I was braking a little bit too early and I just noticed him, so I left him a bit of room. He got through. I could have fought him in the chicane, but I just lifted so that we weren't going to lose any more track position. There's really no point me fighting him, and this being the position that we're going to be stuck with for the whole race. We're just fighting over this position. I really wanted to at least get the guy in front. So after he passed, it was really just wanted to stay with him. As this was only the second race of the weekend, I'm still trying to get my lap times down, so the actual positions in the race wasn't super important to me, even though I definitely did want to beat both of these guys. I really just wanted to get my times down into the 132s I was aiming for. 133, high 133s is what I got last round, so I was really determined to get down into the 132s, and for the weekend I wanted to get into the 131s or even lower if I could. This stage of the race, nearly halfway or approaching halfway through the race, I just want to stay in his draft, make sure we get up to the guy in front, and then see what we can do once we get there. Then all three of us are battling over that position instead of me and Ed just battling over the position behind. So still working on my lines. This corner here was the other main focus. I was trying to do that as quick as I could. I was definitely losing a lot of time in the chicane and the corner before, so I was really working on that this weekend. The other thing I was working on, my awesome mentor Lee Partridge told me, was working on communication with my car, just driving right at the limit so that when I feel it a little bit loose, catching it, and just making sure I'm getting as much pace out of it as possible. I was definitely way too conservative in my first weekend. And the same with, I also wanted to get my elbows out this weekend. So last weekend I was pretty content just sitting behind people and getting a feel for the brand new car that I wasn't used to. Whereas this weekend I really wanted to pass people if I made them fight for positions, not just settle for sitting behind. Having said that, I still wanted to race smart. It's something iRacing has taught me. There's definitely no use fighting when it's just going to cost you ultimately the position. Like in racing, the whole point of it is to get around the whole race as quickly as possible. So there's really no point fighting unnecessarily when you don't need to. I'm not sure what lap we're up to now, but there's only maybe 3 or 4 to go. Another problem we're having is going around this bit here. That sun was absolutely blinding. I'll bring a picture up of what it was like in my helmet. I really couldn't see. So going around that corner was quite scary, because if something happened to the boys in front with a spin or something, I wouldn't have seen them and I would have just been ploughed straight into them. And as we're catching up, I knew Ed was going to have Brian's in the white car. I knew he was going to have him at the end of this lap, so I knew the next time I went around I was really going to have to keep my foot planted at that bit. Coming through here, it's another, even though I'm working on my pace through that corner, I've really got to work on not hesitating so much when I'm behind someone, and just pushing through the corner and just trusting that they're not going to spin. I had a bit of a look there. I was thinking about going past, but I didn't want to, after all the hard work of us catching up, end up going side by side and losing Brian again. So I just let him go and just kept in mind that if I got a good exit there, I could probably try it later on in the race. I knew I was definitely running out of laps now, and knew there was only maybe a couple to go. So I just really wanted to get as close as I could here, and then when Ed made a move, try and be on his gearbox and follow him through so that I could get Brian at the same time. Again, going flat through there with them close with the sun was really scary. I could see Brian was about to make the move, so I wanted to get as close in so that Brian couldn't turn in. You can see he really wanted to, but I was already there, so he really couldn't. He had to just stay wide. And then now, 2 laps to go, maybe 3. It was really important to try and get past Ed. So I wanted to get as good as an exit as I could at this corner. I hesitate a little bit too much, as you can hear with my engine revs, but I knew I was about as close as before, maybe a bit closer, so I knew if I could get beside him, we could go too wide in the sweeper. And this was probably my scariest thing I've done so far in racing. If we touch wheels there, it's really not going to be bad, not going to be a good situation for one of us. So it was a bit of a game of chicken. I'm glad Ed pulled out, because I was definitely not lifting. With my special race engineer that I had for this race, I really didn't want to be behind these guys. Ed covering the inside. If Ed was able to go around the outside, he could have it. I saw that he wasn't close enough, so I was mainly just trying to get a good exit here and get a good run down into the next corner, so that he couldn't do the same move on me that he had done on Brian. I could see in my mirrors that I had a good enough gap, so I'm just trying to slow down, get onto the apex and get a good exit. As you're going to see in this video and the other races that I'll post, I really got to work on my braking. They're really gaining a lot of time on me in the braking zones. I'm braking a bit early, maybe a bit hard. So I've got to work on shortening my braking distance and just not braking so hard at the very start, just only braking when I need to. But my exits are pretty good, so that's allowed me to survive. I really didn't want Ed to make that move again down here, so made sure I kept it flat. That time then was the very first time I did the sweeper with my foot flat. Before that, I'm always lifting up a tiny little bit, so that was the first time I kept it flat. And here we go. Oh, this is the very last lap, so Ed pulls out. You'll see him shake his fist at me. Didn't quite get me. I think he thought we had another lap to go, and from memory I think we actually did have another lap to go, but the officials called it a lap short because of our delayed start. Anyway, that's what happened in race 2. We'll see you for the next race.